Hello, we are going to be putting together a beautifully vibrant bouquet today. So we have some red roses, some yellow orange Gabera daisies. We'll also be adding some yellow mums. And over here we have statice and goldenrod. Now before we get started, in addition to the flowers that we'll be using, we're also going to need 2 corsage pins, some ribbon to go around where you're going to be holding the bouquet. I'm choosing yellow just to kind of play off of some of the colors that are in the bouquet, but you can also use green if you just want the ribbon to blend a little more into the actual stems themselves. And we'll need something to cut the flower stems with, so I'm using pruning shears. You'll need some floral tape. Okay, and then other than that, so I'm going to set these aside because other than that, before we get started, we will prep the flowers. So what you need to do to prep the flowers is to remove any leaves that are going to be not showing anyway. So for the roses, they'll mean taking all the leaves off. So, you pull them off or just cut them off. And if there are any thorns, I see a couple of really little tiny ones here. So you can either cut them off, or I like to just rub my pruning shears against it like that, and that takes the sharpness away from the rose. So now I can hold it with no issues. So what you'll probably notice with roses is that they have guard petals that the farmers actually leave on so that the roses are a little bit protected, while they're in transport. So you can, you can just go ahead and peel off the ones that aren't looking so good or that are torn, just like this one is right here. So just gently pull that off. Okay. So I've already prepped the rest of the flowers that are in these buckets, but I just wanted to show at least one of each on what we need to do to prep them. So these mums, they're very kind of bulky towards the bottom, and we know that anything that's below 9 inches is not going to show anyways, and it's really going to get in the way of where we're trying to tie all the stems together. So I just want to remove the extraneous leaves down below here. So just pick them off. Okay. And then you also want to look for any flower buds that might have, been broken off, during the harvesting process. So for instance, this one's missing. So I'm just going to go ahead and cut that stem off where that bud used to be. So now it looks perfect. And for this statice, there's going to be little leaves down here sometimes. And like I said, they're just going to get in the way. So we're just going to pull those off. Okay, and that is pretty much clean. And then on this goldenrod, like I mentioned before, we just want to keep whatever's about 9 inches or so, because that's all that's really going to show in this bouquet. So I'm just going to cut off a couple of these little bottom stems and any broken leaves. All right. So with that, we are ready to get started. So I am going to start off with the goldenrod. And so there's a simple technique that you're going to be using throughout this bouquet. And you want to situate the stem so that it's between your thumb and your forefinger, just like in that crevice right there, just like I'm showing right here. And then after that, I am going to add some roses. So when I add the rose, I check to see where I would like the height. So with the goldenrod, it looks a little bit nicer to have it maybe a couple inches above the rose. So I'm just going to hold it right here, about 9 inches below the top of the stem, and do a little crisscross. So see how the rose crisscrosses the goldenrod, which is sitting below it? And I'm essentially just going to keep doing that as I add more flowers to what I'm holding. So I like to add another rose here. And again, just putting the rose here and crisscrossing it over the prior stem. Okay. And then always checking the height as well. So I'm satisfied with the height there. So the next one I like to add is some of the mums. And again, and see how some of these leaves are in the way of where I want to hold them. So I'm just going to go ahead and pull those off. Okay. So sticking the stem right here, crisscrossing over the prior. See how this one is crisscrossing right over the prior rose stem? And since the mums are a little bit sparse, you know, on that branch, I'm going to go ahead and add another one. So this is another nice little small one. So with the leaves being in the way, I'm just going to go ahead and pull those off. Okay, and crisscrossing again. And checking the height. So we want to have a little bit of variation in the heights because that actually adds interest. So just keep checking the heights as you're adding your stems on. Okay, and I'm going to add a little purple to this. Again, just following the same technique of laying the new stem right on top of the other one and crisscrossing it over the one below it. And then next I will be adding a Gabera daisy. Now the Gaberas oftentimes come with these sleeves to support the stems because the stems tend to be relatively weak. And I'm just going to go ahead and keep that on there because, you know, later on when we add the fern to around the whole bouquet, you're not going to notice. You're not going to notice the sleeve there. Okay, just again, placing it down and crisscrossing it over the prior stem, just like that. So that is a rather pretty splayed bouquet there. I would consider that as my front side. And so I'm trying, and like I said, this is my front side, so I'm going to turn that Gabera so that's forward facing for me. Okay, and then once you like what it looks like on this side, we are going to go ahead and put some floral tape. But I just looked at it and I'm not really liking how this rose is kind of hidden behind there, so I'm just going to go ahead and pull it up a little bit. Okay, I like that look a lot better. Okay. So carefully, you know, hold it all together and then take the tape, the floral tape. So the way the floral tape works is that it actually becomes sticky once you stretch it. So I'm just going to stretch it a little bit and then I'm going to hold it with my thumb right where I want it, just like that. Okay, and then putting my index finger right on there, and then I'm gonna try to hold it with my right hand as I use my left hand to tape it. And you want to have the tape somewhat tight so that things kind of stay in place. So there you go, wrapped it once. Whoops, that broke, but that's okay. So just stick it underneath my index finger. So you want to pull it so that you activate that sticky layer, but not so tight like I did the first time that it broke. Okay, so just maybe do 4 times. you can just rip it. So there we go. We have our fresh bunch. And this Gerbera daisy kind of turned on me, so I'm just gonna gently twist it so that's facing the front again, what I decided was the front, which is this side. Okay, let me take a look, and that looks good to me. So I'm just gonna set that down so that it can work on the next bunch. And with the next bunch, I am gonna work backwards as far as which stems I lay down together, because I'm trying to do a mirror, well, try to transpose it, because I wanna sandwich or marry another set of flowers onto this side, but I don't wanna start off with roses because the roses are on this end. So rather I wanna start off with the Gerbera daisy. Okay, so as we follow this pattern, going backwards, I would start with the Gerbera first. And since this is gonna be facing to my left, I want these to be facing to my right. Like, to consider that as I'm holding the flowers and assembling them, that they should be facing to the right. Okay, so we got the Gerbera, and next up is gonna be the statice. So same thing, crisscrossing. And I like to have the Gerbera, since they're forward facing, you want them to be a little bit lower. So see how the statice is about a couple inches higher than the Gerbera? That's how we want it. Okay, so crisscrossing, but this one not having to crisscross too much because there is a lot of space between the flowers. So, okay, and then after that we had the mums. So this is a smaller branch here. So crisscrossing, and I'm gonna remove some of these leaves like I mentioned because they're in the way. Crisscrossing over the prior stem, which was the statice. And then I also want to put another smaller bunch just to have more impact with the mums. So again, crisscrossing, and along the way I'm just going to remove these leaves. The roses. So I'm going to use the smaller roses. So one rose. And I want to have this one a little bit higher since I'm going to put another one right next to it. And I guess this is a smaller one. So this one's going to go right here. Still crisscrossing. See how it's crisscrossing right over the prior rose stem? And then after that, we are going to add the goldenrod, crisscrossing it over the last rose. So take a look at it all, because this is essentially the same bunch as far as stems go as the one that we have laying right here, the first one. So you want to take a look at it and see if you like the way it looks from the front side. And so I am going to just adjust this rose a little bit. So sometimes flowers may bend a certain way, and this rose actually has a slight bend to it. So I turn it around so that it's actually bending outwards towards the front, kind of like how this Gerbera daisy is facing. Okay, and I think I am happy with that. The height of all those stems. So like we did with the other one, I'm going to use that floral tape to hold everything together. So again, there's just one tight spot. See how it's just really tight? That's where we want to tape it. Okay, so just take your time, you know, no rush, because this is where, you know, the designs will take shape. So just take your time so that everything stays in place exactly the way that you want it. So take the tape and then place it underneath your thumb. just like I did right there. And then with this hand, the right hand, put your index finger on there and then just kind of transfer it, the whole bunch, into your right hand. And then use the tape to kind of slip it underneath your index finger and then wrap it around. So that was one time already. Going around the second time, third time, and then the fourth time. And remember to pull on the tape slightly so you can activate that sticky material that's within the tape. Okay, so this is the front side of the bouquet. And again, even though you taped everything together, you really want to take a look and see if everything is exactly the way you want it. And so I'm noticing again that the rose is hidden behind the goldenrod, but I wanted to show a little bit more, so I pulled it up. Okay, and even with the goldenrod, you know, it's okay to try to push it a little bit off to the side because that's where we intended it to be initially. And then once I did that, again, I would like this rose to be down a little bit lower.
Now we can marry the two of them together.
And see how the arrangement is opposite as far as the location of the different flowers. So we're just gonna put them together just like this. I'm trying not to have the flowers look like they're too smushed together. And so that's why I'm just playing with it a little bit. So rather than having it right on where all the stems are straight like this, I'm actually trying to angle them. See how it's more splayed out than just doing it like this? Because that actually adds to a more natural look. So see how when I did that, there's more space, more breathing room between the flowers, and that's actually a nicer look. So at this point, you know, I'm just gonna hold it like this while I put some more floral tape before we add more flowers to this. And we have the benefit of having floral tape on here already. So the floral tape likes to stick to itself. So again, the same method. With my left thumb, I slip the tape right underneath it. Using my right hand, I pull a little bit to activate that sticky adhesive that's within the tape. And then I put my right hand over the new piece of tape with the index finger right here. And then using my left hand, I'm going to wrap the two bunches together. Now I noticed that I was kind of holding it really tightly, so I'm just going to take a look here before I get too far along with taping to make sure that I'm not forcing the flowers too tightly together. Okay, so I readjusted again, and I'm just going to go ahead and continue wrapping 4 times. What I like to do when I'm pulling the tape is I like to just pull it and forcing it to really, you know, pull on the tape that's on the bouquet itself so that I know that it's actually really sticking well. All right, so here we have one bouquet, and we just need to fill in for the parts that look like it still needs to be rounded out. So if you look at it, you would probably say this space right here needs some more flowers. And looking at it, I would say that I would like to add some mums there. So I'm just gonna grab a bunch here and and place it right in here to fill up that space. And again, paying attention to the height, because now that you have somewhat of a round shape, you want to pay attention to what you have so that you're not having it jut out too much. So there you go. See how I'm continuing? I'm looking at it from above. Yeah, looking at it from above so that I can see that roundness. And again, I angle it in a way so that allows it still going that crisscross. Okay, and then as we add each of these stems on, I'm actually going to go ahead and tape it just so we know that it's going to stay exactly where we want it. And then 3. And I'm just going to go ahead and leave the tape hanging off of there since I know that I'm going to be adding single stems at this point. All right, and so if I were to take a look at this, I think that maybe there could be some purple up in here. So I'm going to take this. And we don't even have to use the whole stem. You know, sometimes you just want to add a little bit of color. So I'm just going to cut off just maybe one stem because this one looks like it has plenty of purple on it. So let me just go here and cut it and add it right here. And I'm going, instead of crossing over to my right, I'm going to cross to my left just because that allows the flower to be exactly where I would want it. Well, the other way would work too. Actually, that's a nicer fit. So sometimes you just have to play with it to see what works best. All right, so again, I'm just gonna wrap 3 times just because it's just a single stem. So it doesn't need that much tape. 2 times and 1 more time. And as I'm wrapping all of these together, it's actually reinforcing all the other prior stems that we've put on here. Wow, so it's coming together nicely. And let's see, we still have a Gabbera right here, and I feel like this side is a little bit empty. So I'm going to place the Gabbera right here. And I love for bouquets how the Gabbera just naturally faces one direction. So it really makes it for a nice flower to stick onto the side of a bouquet. So again, I'm crisscrossing it left to right and placing it right here and checking the height to see if that's exactly where I want it. Because we already have some beautiful mums in the rows right there, so we don't want to cover them up. So actually placing the Gabbera a little bit lower, just like that. Okay, and again, we're gonna wrap this tape around this Gabbera stem just to make sure that it stays exactly where we want it. Now looking at it, you know, since we have 1 stem of goldenrod left, if you look at the overall composition, you can see that this side has some goldenrod, the center has some, so it looks like this side, to even out and balance out the bouquet, the goldenrod should probably go somewhere over on this side. So that's what we're gonna do. I am going to stick it right here between the mums and the other Gabbera daisy. And if you look at it from the top, it looks like a phallus now. So wrapping it one. yes, it's looking quite nice. So this side looks good, but on this side, it looks like it needs to be filled in more around here. So I'm gonna stick a rose in right on over here. And if you'll notice, the rose itself is facing to the right. And so we, instead of like forcing it in this way where it's pushing towards the bouquet, I'm gonna turn it around so it'll naturally face outward. So crisscrossing from the left to the right and looking at the placement. And so that looks good to me. So again, with the tape, just looking at it again, I think that I'm going to go ahead and place another rose right here to fill in this space. So wrapping it with the tape. And you just want to keep constantly checking around the bouquet to see what looks like it needs to be filled in. And I'm fairly happy with this side. So I think that what I want to do is to fill in here with the last bit of mums. And sometimes when you notice like leaves like this that are broken, just go ahead and pull them off because we're not going to see those anyway. And this one, the flower, the mums are going to be sitting a little bit lower right here. So we really don't need all the leaves that are below. So I'm going to just, I'm going to set down this bouquet in the bucket for a second while I get rid of these leaves. This is nice and clean. I'm going to go ahead and add it to that spot that I was wanting. So just right here. And again, you don't want to just press it up against here like this because it just doesn't look natural. And by having it angled across from left to right, it allows the flowers itself to have a little more room to breathe. See how that looks? Okay, and we will continue again to secure the stem by wrapping with the tape. At this point, you can just take a look to see if you want to add any more stems. You don't have to, but you know, I think I do want to add some purple over here. Because see how there's purple here, here, and here. So it needs to be filled out a little with a little bit of purple over here. And actually maybe, yeah, so I'm going to add some purple over here. And I think that should be fine because there is purple over here. But this isn't working out too well, you know, based on how I want the flowers to go. So since these two are together, I'm going to keep them together and then cut off this third stem here and possibly use it somewhere else. We'll pull these leaves off because they're kind of in the way. Okay, so sticking this here and paying attention to the way the flowers naturally like to be. I'm going to allow it to, the purple to stick out a little bit. Okay, and again, using the tape to wrap it. Okay, so we have some purple left. I'm trying to decide if I need it anywhere. And I'm thinking that I'm good. But this is plenty of flowers, so we don't need this last one. Okay, and then to finish it off, we have some leatherleaf fern. And I like to use the leatherleaf fern to kind of create like a collar for the bouquet itself. So when I place these, I don't want to cover up any of the beautiful flowers when you're looking at it from the side. But I do like that it, with it peeking out from the top a little bit. So just go ahead and take a look from the top and see how far up you need to stick the stem so that it is peeking out. And then these little branches here are not needed since that's where we're going to be holding the bouquet. So I'm just gonna, while I have my thumb there to hold the fern in place, I'm gonna go ahead and snip those branches off. To use the tape to secure that new stem into place. And since those stems are rather lightweight, I'm just going to wrap it with the tape just a couple of times. Okay, and then I'm going to go, so I put one fern here, and then I'm just going to go on the opposite side and put another fern on the other side. Like I said, I don't want to cover up any of those flowers, so I'm just going to gently put the petals, push them out so that the fern goes right underneath it. And then wherever the tape is, anything below that tape, I'm going to go ahead and snip off those branches. Wrapping this a couple of times. Okay, 2. And then I'm going to put in between the 2 ferns, I'm going to add another one, just right in between them. And you want to look at it from the top so that you can see it peeking out a little bit, so that it's very symmetrical as far as how much is peeking out. So I'm going to hold my thumb there and cut off the branches. Yeah, what's great about this tape is that it really keeps the stems exactly where you want them. If you follow the method that I've shown you, just starting off with 2 little bundles of flowers, putting those together and then adding on, really makes it simple. Okay, and then the last little bit of fern, we're going to put in the remaining space. And again, take a view from the top and see if it's sticking out like you want. Okay, and I am going to cut off the little branches again that are below the tape area. this is my last time. I'm going to do it 4 times just to really make sure that everything is secure. And then I'm not going to take this tape off or cut it off just right yet, because I have a little trick that I like to do to help me put the ribbon on. So what I like to do, so as you place your flowers down, just, you know, your berry is a little bit fragile, so, you know I can put it on this side, lay it down, or actually maybe I'll just put it back in the bucket for a second, just so I can get the ribbon ready. Okay, so this is the ribbon that we're going to use, and it already has a little tip that's been cut diagonally, and I like that because that's the part where I'm going to stick it underneath the tape and help it secure it before I actually wrap everything together. And I'm not going to use very much of the ribbon. I just want to have it right in this section here. Okay, so with the tape, see how the tape is right there? Well, take your ribbon, and then with the part that is sticking out, just stick it under like this, just like so. See how the tape is going right on over the ribbon? Well, angle it up so that you can get it around the ribbon. See how I did that with the tape? That's why I didn't want to cut it off, so that it's already very secure to the whole bouquet, and then it can help get the ribbon started on this handle here. And so knowing that I'm going to want it to have the ribbon like this, I kind of help it a little bit in that direction and hold it with my index finger as I pull the tape around. As I pull the tape around to cover up that other beginning section of the ribbon. Whoops. Okay, and then so you put your thumb right over the ribbon and the tape. And with this hand, just go ahead and put the ribbon where you kind of want it to be and hold it. See how I'm holding it with my left thumb? And then with this tape, just pull it all around. Okay, and then just pull it taut, and then just rip the tape. And just press the tape on down. So now you have, you know, it makes it easier so you're not trying to fumble with the ribbon as you're trying to get it to go around this handle here. So we essentially want to cover up all of the green tape. So I would start with trying to cover the bottom and then work my way up. So see how I'm trying to cover the bottom of the tape there and have the top part exposed? So just go around with that. And then just keep going around and gradually having the ribbon come on to the top side. And then also decide which side is the front of your bouquet, because there's always one side that looks the best. So as I'm taking a look at this, I would say that this is probably the best looking side. So with that in mind, I am going to have my ribbon end at the front side where I will be putting the little row of pins. So essentially, this is where I want my pins to go. And I am going to cut a little bit beyond, maybe about 1/2 inch beyond where I want the ribbon to end, so that I can fold it back under and have a nice, you know, a nice way to pin the ribbon so that it's not going to fray. Okay, so like I said, cutting it about 1/2 inch beyond where my finger is, where I'm going to be pinning. And then I'm just going to fold the ribbon back. And make sure it's nicely tucked under so the edges aren't showing. And then just hold it with your thumb as you get one of the pins and you stick it at an angle through one of the stems and stick it. You can either do it on up or on down. This time I did it on up. And I kind of stuck it in the middle of the ribbon, which is not really what I wanted. I actually wanted to put 2 pins, so you can always just pull it back out and readjust where you're pinning it. So do that one over. And all right, that's nice. That's where I want it. And then with the second pin, I'm gonna do that again. Also going upward, just so that I don't risk having the pin showing towards the bottom or anyone hurting themselves, you know, as they're holding it. And again, I don't like that it's so close to the bottom of this ribbon, so I'm just going to pull it out and readjust it. So see, with flower arranging, it's, you know, adjustments can always be made. All right. So I'm happy with that. And then just to continue on and have it look nice and pretty, I just decided that I'm going to add a couple of more, just so the pins cover the whole ribbon. The last pin going up in here. And I also want to mention, see the angle that I'm pinning it up in? I'm not pinning it straight through because I wanted to go through to the other side. I'm just pinning it up at an angle. Wow, this one's rather hard. And sometimes you'll get that where you're just putting it into a branch that's a little bit thick. So just readjust and, you know, stick it somewhere else. Stick it in at another angle. All right. So I think we have the ribbon and the pins exactly where we want them. So the last thing to do is to cut off all the stems at the bottom so that it's even and it is comfortable for the bride to hold, because, you know, if the branches are too long or the stems are too long, it's going to be poking her in her dress. So what I like to do is just imagine the bride holding the bouquet. So maybe she would hold it like, you know, maybe like this. So I would allow maybe a couple inches below where the bottom hand is. So I'm just going to place my hand there just so I can kind of see. And so I think that would be right around maybe 2 or 3 inches. So let's just do 3 inches. So that would be right here. So I'm just going to, you know, cutting it straight across, just evenly. Just imagine if you were to set this bouquet on the table, that it would just be able to stand on its own because it's cut nice and straight across. So I love using these pruning shears because they cut so well through flower branches and also any other branches if you're working more with more woody type stems. And I'm just taking a look at it from below because I can see that these stems on the back side need to be cut a little bit more just to have that levelness that I was speaking of. So there you go, our bouquet. So after you're done, you want to definitely keep the bouquet in a vase just to make sure that it's always hydrated, and really just keep it in a vase anytime it's not being used for pictures, or if it's not being used by the bride. And that will make sure that your flowers stay nice and fresh. So I hope you enjoyed this lesson and that you have fun.